Hi everyone, welcome to the ultimate Lord of the Rings and Elden Ring crossover. Today we are channeling our inner ranger with an Aragorn build that'll leave your enemies staggered. I've seen so many Gotses, Kratoses, SpongeBob SquarePants and much more inspired builds and characters in Elden Ring, but not many the Lord of the Rings related ones. As an Elden Ring enjoyer and Lord of the Rings fan, this kinda bothered me. So a friend of mine suggested making some cosplay builds based on Tolkien's works and adaptations. To make these builds as close as possible, you need many items, some of which might not be possible to procure at the start of the game. I'll try to make these RL 150 builds for New Game Plus and beyond, so you can enjoy your endgame or NG Plus playthroughs with these Middle-earth inspired characters. For each build, I tried to pick the closest armor and weapons that resemble those characters and then, based on a bit of lore reasoning, make a viable build for NG Plus and kill some of the most important bosses with them, to make sure it's working as intended. If you want to change the stuff to get more out of this build, feel free to make those changes. Every boss fight footage you see during this video is from New Game Plus 1. And don't worry, I'll provide a link in the description to the sliders data so you can mimic their faces as closely as possible. Aragorn is a powerful, skilled, and agile swordsman who sometimes uses a bow and arrow and doesn't have any supernatural abilities. To show his power with strength and agility with dexterity, we need to find a sword and bow and make it a quality build. But before that, let us find something for him to wear in the lands between. He has many looks in the movies, so I chose to build something from all of them. For the chest piece, I used the tree coat, which you can buy from a nomadic merchant near that broken bridge in Altos Plateau. You can use the altered version of Preceptor's long gown from Celuis after running off sim to make your character more angel-like, but I prefer the tree coat. For gauntlets, I used one from the Ansbach set, which you can get from siding with him and completing his questline to the end, and after defeating the last boss of the DLC. For legs, I went the Greaves of Solitude from the Black Jail Knight in the Western Nameless Mausoleum because it fits the set and gets you 55 poise, which is somewhat important for all melee builds. Sadly, nothing is like Narsil or Anduril, but Longsword is the closest looking weapon to Anduril and Aragorn's previous sword in the movies, so I went with that. The Longsword comes with a square off as its default skill, which is a stagger machine. You hold a skill button and then do a light attack, which slashes up and does 30 stance damage. Or you can press the heavy attack button to run and do a thrust attack, which does 40 stance damage. Both are great and can be used according to the situation. One important thing, don't use the default version. Since this is going to be a quality build, find the Teardrop Scarab in Shifra River to get Ash of War score off, have Iron Red Blade from Stormveil Castle, and then put the Ash of War with quality affinity on the longsword to get far more damage out of this weapon. Since most bosses in Elden Ring have between 80 and 120 stance, heavy version of a score off, the running and thrusting attack one, is considerably better for stance breaking. For example, Margit has 80 stance, and if you smack him with this Ash of War twice in a short span of time, you're gonna stance break him and then you can go for a sweet critical strike. There are some bosses that has more than 120 stance like Elden Beast, but they are very few and just need one or two more smacking with that Ash of War. Light version has its uses too. Besides being faster, it drains the stamina of shield enemies in greater numbers. It is considerably better against humanoid bosses and NPC invaders too, as you can see from the Knight of the Solitary Jail, FKA Black Jail Knight boss fight. This is a very versatile build and you can add whatever greases you deem fit to your weapon, like fire grease, and melt the boss easier. It has some kind of lore reasoning behind it too. Anduril means flame of the west, and in the books, it's shown reddish like a flame under the sun and white under the moon. So adding something like fire grease is not completely out of the character. But don't hold yourself back, use whatever that wins the fight. For boss weaknesses, check some wiki on the internet like Dexter Life. Aragorn sometimes uses an ordinary looking bow, and the longbow is the closest thing we can get in Elden Ring. It's a great utility for this kind of melee builds that don't have any sorceries or incantations. You can use whatever you need based on the situation, but regular arrows are usually fine. If you want a bit more damage and feel like farming, Storming Bone Arrow has the highest physical damage. Use the bow skill, Mighty Shot, as much as possible. It increases the damage, status effect build up, and range of each arrow, and you can use it even when zoomed in. Just a quick note. If you want to inflict status effects on bosses, it's usually better, cheaper, and faster to use a throwable path rather than arrows. As for the setup, two-hand the sword in the right slot and put the bow in the left. So you can switch the bow at the moment's notice and by switching two-handing from right to left like you see in this video. Since a square off is a stance, the best talisman for it is Relala's cameo. With this talisman, if you hold the button for 1 second, your character gets a reddish aura that shows you are going to deal 45% more damage with your skill, which is huge. You can't always do it, but try to time your attack so you smash the boss when you are empowered. We rely a lot on this Azure ward for damage, so for the second talisman slot, we use Shard of Alexander. It boosts the attack power of weapon skills by 15%. For the last two talisman slots, it really depends on your playstyle, but I personally prefer the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman to add 20% more physical protection since we can't wear heavy armor. And the two-handed sword talisman from the DLC to boost our normal two-handed attacks by 15%. You can use whatever you like, especially in the place of the two-handed sword talisman if you don't use normal attacks a lot. Remember that this talisman does not affect your weapon skills damage. Just don't use the axe talisman, it's almost always bad to use a charge heavy attack with this build. The skill does far more damage and it's faster. You can use another defensive talisman or Blade of Mercy from the DLC, which is not bad too since we are a stagger machine with this build. It raises attack power by 20% for 20 seconds after each critical hit. But I find my recommended setup more useful in most exploration scenarios and boss encounters. Attribute-wise, since it's going to be a quality build, go for these stats for a level 150 build. 50 Vigor, 24 Mind, 30 Endurance, 50 Strength, 50 Dexterity, and the rest don't matter for this build. The best starting class for this build is Vagabond, but at a level 150 plus, you are fine with Wolver. You can take points from Mind and put them in Vigor for more HP or Dexterity and Strength for more damage. But I prefer not to think much about drinking FP potions, even during clearing and exploring, so I like a bit higher Mind here. If you want to put point in damaging stat, Dex gives you a tiny bit more damage per point, since you are higher up on the damage curve for Strength, as you are two-handing the weapon. If you want to level up beyond 150, you can get 60 Vigor, 80 Dex, 80 Strength, and only then Endurance for more stamina and Mind for more FP. Always remember the soft caps in Elden Ring 2. You probably only need maximum of 2 FP flasks. The rest should be HP. For Flask of Wondrous Physic, nothing is that necessary and you can use whatever you like, but I suggest using Green Burst Crystal Tear for 3 minutes of faster stun regen because square off its stamina, and Winged Crystal Tear to make yourself a light roll for 3 minutes. This is kinda useful for this build and weapon since we are using a rather short weapon and need to almost hug the boss. This Crystal Tear can get us out of par a lot easier, but feel free to use whatever you like and find useful inside Physic. For Great Rune, Radon is probably the best. More HP, FP and stamina is always welcome. Some extra stuff you can use for the Aragorn build is Call of Tibia Throwable from the DLC. You can craft these and when you throw them, they summon a spectral skeleton, which fits the theme of Aragorn commanding the army of the dead. You can use a skeletal militiaman ashes too if you feel like it. It fits the same theme for Aragorn. It's a pure physical damage build. Something like Exalted Flesh can help too if you want more damage. When consumed, it grants 20% more damage for 30 seconds. You can use other buffs and stuff like perfumes, golden vow on a dagger and etc. If you team fit, but they are not thematically related in my opinion, so I won't go into them. And don't forget, use greases and throwable pots if you need them. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed watching this, please give it a thumbs up, and share it with friends. You can find the related links for all the items of this build in the description. I do plan to make it a full series, so follow for more, and if you have any questions or suggestions, please put them below and I will try to answer as best as I can. By the way, what other Lord of the Rings characters would you like to see in the Elden Ring sooner? Drop these suggestions in the comments too. See ya!